Well, hey, Seven Figure Builder family. This is Julie Baranick, host of Seven Figure Builder Show, and I'm here with my friend Will Laurenson. Hey, Will.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Of course, of course. So, first and foremost, where in the world are you?
I'm in London in the UK,
Nice.
where the weather is typically English.
I'm sure. And tell us a bit about your business. We're going to talk about conversion optimization today, which I love to geek out on. But tell us a bit about what you do.
Yeah, sure. So, we're a customers who click a conversion rate optimization agency for e-commerce businesses. We currently offer a performance model. We get paid on the results we generate. Been doing this for about 4 years now, and have a podcast of my own, which is also the Customers Who Click podcast, which has been going for 4 years. We're on episode 195 went out yesterday. When we're recording this, I don't know when this is going to go live. Um, and just really briefly, I suppose the reason I got into CRO was because I was in house before at some startups, so smaller businesses where they were funded, right? So there was a bit of an attitude of we've got the money, let's plow it into advertising and grow the business. And two companies, I basically had this exact same situation at two companies in a row where we weren't getting the results we needed to grow properly. But we were pretty confident on the advertising side. We were good. We knew what we were doing. We were getting good click-through rates, good performance on the ad side, but it wasn't converting. We weren't retaining. So when the pressure started to mount a bit, and it was like, why aren't we hitting the targets? Why aren't we growing as quickly as we should be? I started to dive into the analytics a bit more, into customer research, and I was saying to the C-suite and the product teams, the reason we're not doing this is because we haven't got good landing pages, the app's not good enough. The technical experience, the experience people are having when they click through the ad wasn't good enough, and that's why we weren't converting people. That's why we weren't retaining people. So I started to work on um, essentially CRO, although I didn't know it at the time. Doing customer research, finding out what the problems were, how they wanted to have a better experience, working with the product teams to then optimize that and see that growth. And then I left my last job as head of conversion for quite a big gambling brand over here back in November 19 to set up Customers Who Click. And I decided, I wanted to do CRO. It's not something that I was really seeing that much of out there. And I thought, this is something I like doing. I don't really care about the advertising side. It was never really my interest. My interest was, once someone clicks through the ad, how do we give them an incredible experience so they turn into a customer that is going to spend more money more frequently with us?
100%. And you kind of already answered my question, but for people that aren't as close to this, or not data geeks like we are, why should people care?
Um, because it makes more money, essentially.
Right.
That's the end goal. Everyone wants to make more money, and there's different ways you can do that. Obviously, you can drive more traffic, you can get people to buy more stuff, and you can get people to buy more stuff more frequently. Loads of people focus on the traffic side, right? I think that there is almost this idea that if you've managed to get to 50 grand a month, 100 grand a month, something like that, you're obviously doing something well on that side. And therefore, your problem is the adverts and driving more traffic. And that's where you need to scale up. But actually, if let's say you're doing 100 grand a month and you want to double your revenue, well, assuming everything stays equal, which I know isn't true, you would have to double your traffic, right? And doubling traffic requires double the income, double the budget, right? So that's not something you can simply do. So what we do as CRO is we're looking at what are the other levers we can move to improve those numbers. And really it comes down to trying to move multiple levers at the same time. So I know I said there were three things, more traffic, more customers, more customers spending more money more frequently. But actually, we break it down quite a lot more for the website experience because similar to doubling traffic, which is a big ask. Doubling conversion rate's a massive ask as well, right? It's such a massive question. Where do you even start with that? So I know we'll probably go into this a bit later, so
No,
I'll
go
keep
for
it
it.
a bit short. We look at, how do we improve the number of people who view a product on the website? And that's a goal for us, right? So we'll run tests aimed at doing that, obviously with the goal of improving conversion rate. Then we will look at tests that improve add to cart rate and tests that improve begin checkout rate and tests that improve the complete checkout rate. Because if we can increase each of those by a small amount, combined, that'll have the effect of doubling your revenue. And then we can go even further with it really and say, because even how do we improve add to cart is quite a big question. There's a lot that can go into that. So when we do our research and analytics and stuff, we'll identify what some of the problems are. And we might say, well, loads of people are interacting with the image gallery on your product page, but your add to cart rate is really low. So maybe those images aren't good. Maybe there's something missing there. So how do we get better information there? Or it could be, for one brand we're working with, they sell a sample box for one of their products,
Mhm.
and it's not very visible on the website, right? So we're looking into the analytics around LTV and stuff first. But essentially, my test that I want to run is, can we make this more obvious so that we get more people to add the sample box to cart, more people to purchase that, which then if they're happy, they'll come back and make their full purchase. So it's all about, these little pieces of engagement throughout the entire funnel that we want to try and optimize, which will ultimately, when they're all combined and when all doing better, are going to double your revenue so that you don't have to try and double your budget on the ad spend side.
I love that. And I like to think of it as micro conversions, where it's like you're looking at each of those
Yeah.
tiny little pieces and optimizing each little one. So as people are coming through that journey, you can see where they're getting stuck, right? Like where it's
Yeah.
working really well up to here, but how do we get them here?
That's exactly it, really. You're breaking down the funnel. Where are people getting stuck, and how can we get people through this bit? And what a lot of people tend to do is they'll default to apps and things. Install a bunch of Shopify apps and follow some best practices and things. And we've run thousands of tests now on e-commerce sites. There are very few best practices, apart from very, very kind of top level stuff. So obviously you should have a navigation. Most brands should have a search bar. Most brands should have obviously an add to cart button, a quantity selector, standard checkout flow. But when it comes to like the detail on all of those, that's very brand specific, and it has to be tested on a brand by brand basis.
Yeah, 100%. And I think there's something to be said there too, that if you're not getting the conversion rate or the revenue that you want through your site, the whole thing's not broken, right? Like it could be a tiny little tweak that you need to make that could really make a difference.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes I think with one brand we worked with, they sold an ergonomic pillow to help with neck pain. We made one change, so they had three icons on their page, on the product page. I can't remember exactly what they were now. All I remember was one of them was vegan, and I thought it's a pillow.
You're not eating
Um,
it.
how many people? How many people would even think about whether it's a vegan friendly product, and what's the detail there? Anyway, the other 2 points were kind of similar, sort of not really benefits of the product. So we changed these to something like reduces neck pain, reduces shoulder pain, and eases headaches. Um, and that had I think it was about a 10.9%.
Wow.
I remember it was 10 point something percent increase in conversion rate, just changing the wording on these three icons that were on the PDP,
Wow. That's
right?
huge.
Because they went from completely irrelevant and pointless and just taking up space to focusing on people's pain points, right? So just that one small tweak, right? Just changing text,
Mhm.
right? So not even a complex test to do, but that very simple thing based on a little bit of research was a fantastic result for them.
So how do you know what to fix? I mean, people listening to this might think, I don't know what's broken. I don't know what's working. Like, and I certainly don't know what to change to make an impact.
Yeah. So the first thing we do is, well, we always do a heuristic analysis of a website and just give it a once over with our own audit, which is just over 300 checkpoints across the website. And that just gives us a feel for are there anything that we urgently think should be fixed and we think is definitely wrong and something to look at. Um, Most brands generally do okay. They have a lot of the things. So most of our checklist gets marked as can be improved rather than bad or missing and something we need to work on. So then we look at Google Analytics, and in there, the main thing we're going to look at is the conversion funnel, the purchase journey. So, what percentage of sessions view a product? What percentage of those add to cart? What percentage of those begin checkout? And what percentage of those complete checkout and convert? And there we're looking for, where is the big drop off? Where do we think the opportunity is? And this is where, to be honest, the only way I can describe it is this is where a bit of experience comes in and knowledge, because it's not always as simple as the data makes it look. So we've seen brands who have had quite good add to cart rates and low begin checkout rates. And so you think, well, okay, so there must be a problem on the cart. Because, if people are adding to cart, that's, great. They're adding the product. They must be interested. So why aren't they moving any further? Sometimes it's an issue with the cart. So sometimes the cart will say, there's a $20 shipping fee or something that's come out of nowhere and that puts people off. More likely what's happening if there's a drop off at that point is they're not convinced by the product, right? There's, maybe there was something kind of gimmicky on the page that made them click add to cart and go for it. And then when they saw that cart summary and they see that product and they see the price and the checkout button, they think, actually, I'm not entirely sure this is right for me. And so they drop. But really, if you look at the add to cart rate, you might think, well, if there's an add to cart rate of 15%, we haven't got a PDP problem, right? But it's not entirely true. So yeah, the first thing we're looking at there is that e-commerce funnel. Where are the drop-offs? And so where should we be targeting and kind of which of these are below our benchmarks? And the benchmarks vary a bit per industry. If you're high ticket, your add to cart rate is going to be a lot lower. That's the first place we're looking. And then we move to behavioral side. So heat maps, session recordings, and we're looking at what are people actually doing on these pages that we think is causing them to drop off, and what do we see people do who convert? So do highly convert, does the converting traffic all click on the product description or product details accordion, and the traffic that doesn't convert doesn't do that? So how do we get more people to see that information? Yeah, that's kind of where we would start really, and then we move into the hypotheses, ideation of test ideas. But in order to identify what we think is the problem, it's what are the pages we think there's big drop off and blockages, and then what are people doing on those pages that might indicate there is a problem.
Yeah, and to that example of the add to cart and the drop off there, it sounds to me there's a lack of trust somewhere between your customer and the result that you're promising to give them. So what are some things that you would recommend to somebody if you come across that scenario that they can improve that?
There's a bunch of things. So I'll just explain our methodology first, because this will help give a bit of context to it. So we have the UAM method for CRO, which is usability, anxiety, and motivation. So usability is how does the website work? How does it function? How easy is it for me to find and buy what I'm looking for, essentially? Anxiety is the questions and concerns I have about the products and the business. So does this product do what I need it to do? Does this product have anything about it that that means I can't buy it? A good example I always go to is food. If a product has nuts in. There's a lot of people who say, cool, nut allergy, can't buy that. But also the issue could be if it doesn't display allergen information, those people also can't purchase it because they don't know if it doesn't have nuts. Then there's also the anxiety about the business, which is kind of what you mentioned with that trust piece. If I've never come across your brand before, one of my anxieties is, who are you? Why should I trust you? Why should I buy from you? Because I think what a lot of brands forget about is just because someone has clicked on your ad and they've landed on your website does not mean they are high intent and ready to buy, right? There are hundreds of alternative products they could go and buy. They might not be identical. You might have your own USPs. That's fine. That's great. But there are still alternatives that people can go to. So you need to give people a reason to buy from you. And quite often that's, general company reviews are great to see. If you don't have those, but you have a lot of product reviews, that kind of does the job anyway. But if you have live chat, a phone number, um, even some stuff like just stating free returns adds a lot of trust for people. Um, so just, the big one that I like to look at is, you know, is there obviously a real business here? And you can do that by, yeah, if there's a live chat function and I can speak to someone, great. I know there's real people there. Um, if there is an email address, a phone number, you know, no one's going to check them. No one's going to phone the number, speak to a real person, then go, cool, I was just checking. Now I can purchase. But the presence of a phone number tends to give them um, that reassurance. And another big one that's offsite is social media. A lot of people will go onto your Instagram profile in particular. They will check to see, have you got a verified profile? Have you got a story live, which shows that you're active? Have you got recent posts? Do you get engagement on those posts? And what does that engagement look like? If I open a post up and I see loads of negative comments, obviously really bad. If I see loads of people saying, yeah, I bought this, it's incredible, I love it, that's it. It doesn't have to be the same product either. People just want to see that people are generally happy with your business. And ideally you're responding to that.
And that's that social
Um,
proof element.
yeah, yeah, but it's an offsite piece. So most people think CRO is on-site optimization. It's not. That's part of what we do, but part of it is just generally, I mean, it's conversion rate optimization. It's whatever we can do anywhere to improve conversions. Some of that is going to be not on the website. Um, so that's that anxiety piece, and then there's motivation. So that's the final kind of. I'm looking at your product. It might have answered all my questions. What dimensions are it? Is it? How do I install it? Put it together, maintain it, whatever. With a lighting company, one of the questions we were getting is, what happens if the bulb goes?
Mhm.
Right, which is something that's going to happen years ahead potentially, but people are still asking that question before they purchase. Um, but once you answer all those questions, there's still got to be the wow factor. So your product either needs to solve a pain point or help someone get towards a desired outcome. Um, and sometimes they're kind of the same, and you can just phrase them differently. It depends a bit on your category and which direction you want to go with that. But what's an example? Trying to think of an example of something I bought recently. Um, I need to tick all those boxes for my questions about the product, but I've still got to be in that position where I think, right, I need to get this now. Right. Obviously, some products you have that coming into the purchase anyway. But I don't know, if I'm buying a new TV, let's say, it might meet my requirements, but I might still be like, well, why this one? I know it meets those things, but it's, £1,000. Big commitment. Do I really want to buy it? But if the page talks about the experience I'm going to have with it, specifically talks to me, so going into real detail here, but let's say they ran an advert on Facebook which talked about watching sports, like watching sports with friends, right? This is the ideal TV for watching sports with friends because it's designed to work in a way that allows 10 people in your standard living room to be able to get a good watching experience from this TV. So that's the bit that makes me go, okay, cool. That's relevant to me. I like having friends over watching sports. Click through the advert, ticks off all the boxes. But if the page then doesn't make me feel like this is going to be a wow experience for watching the football with my friends, I'm going to drop probably. Well, there's a better chance that I'm going to tick all those boxes. I'm going to see that £1,000 price tag and go, maybe I'll just think about it for a little bit. But if there's a way of motivating me and getting me to go, the match is on this weekend, maybe I will commit to this so that I can have it in time for then. That's the bit that gets that purchase over the line.
Yeah. And it's so true. I mean, if people are coming to your website, you've essentially established there's a need there, right? Like they're probably somewhere in your demographic. But to your point, there's these other boxes to tick before they're actually going to purchase. And a big one that you mentioned is that emotional connection, right?
Yeah,
Like when you can get them to envision sitting there in front of the match with all their friends around them on this massive TV, and how much better will that experience be than the tiny little thing you've got right now, right? Like, your
yeah,
friends are going to love it. And like just playing on that emotion, that's what psychologically gets us over that finish line.
exactly. You actually see this a lot with like monitors and PCs and
Mhm.
laptops. There's
Guilty as
always
charged.
yeah, you get a lot of messaging around gaming
Yeah.
within that space, which is obvious because it is a massive category. But that's a good example of, anyone could use the monitor.
Mhm.
And I'm sure, anyone could use the laptop or the PC. It's also probably, don't quote me on this because I'm not an expert in this, but if I'm buying a high spec gaming laptop, I imagine a video editor could probably use that same laptop because it's still going to be high spec, but you still have to market it differently to those two different audiences. Because if I look at it and I'm like, well, it's actually a video editing one. I'm not a video editor. There's a chance that I might actually think I know video editing requires a lot of power, like processing power and stuff. There's a chance I might feel that that computer is actually overpowered for what I need it for,
Mhm.
and that puts me off the purchase. So by splitting them up and saying, well, this is the gaming one,
Mhm.
and this is the video editing one, which is almost identical, except this one little thing we're going to change, or one little detail that we'll talk about differently.
Yeah, totally. And you mentioned earlier about the heat maps and behavior recordings. And again, I love geeking out on this stuff, but most people I don't think are familiar that that even exists. So can you talk to us a bit about that?
Yep. So vast majority of brands, I would just say go install Clarity, Microsoft Clarity. It's free and it tracks all your sessions, right? So there's no throttling on it. Whereas other tools, which I won't name, they're normally tiered. So you have to spend, $100 a month to get a tiny amount of your traffic saved, and then it rolls up. And I believe they do it on a lot of them do it on percentage. So if you're a small brand, if you've got 100,000 visits a month and you get 1% of your traffic saved, tracked, you're not going to get anywhere with these. And also, it doesn't segment or discriminate at all. So you might end up with 1% of your terrible traffic tracked, which offers you no insight, and all your really good traffic, helpful traffic, hasn't been tracked. So
Mhm.
yeah, just install Microsoft Clarity. It does heat map session recordings and tracks a load of other data. So heat maps, essentially, you can see what people are clicking on your website, right? So you can open up your PDP and you can see how many people click on the image gallery, um, your add to cart, your options, navigation, search, so you can get a feel for what and when you see where the heat on that is, literally a heat map, right? So the more red it is, the more people are clicking there, and it will tell you how many clicks. But if you're getting a massive red heat map over your search bar or navigation on a PDP and not so much elsewhere,
Mhm.
there's obviously something going wrong there. Either something about the PDP is not that attractive and people just aren't interested, or you're driving the wrong traffic to that page. Um, but yeah, essentially it tells you what people are clicking on, what people are not clicking on, and then you can start to come up with some ideas from that. Then you get scroll maps, which are also useful. So scroll map simply tells you how far down the page people scroll, and how much traffic gets lost at each at various points. So you normally get some fixed like 75, 50, 25% markers. As you drag your mouse down it, you'll see the different stats. But this is great because you can see, do people see the content you've got below the fold? Loads of brands will say to us, well, we've got this video on our web on our PDP, or all the information is on the PDP. We lay it out in an FAQ or something. We look at the scroll maps and no one gets that
Yeah.
far down the page.
You lost their attention before that.
Another big one we see, which is really interesting, is there are certain elements on a PDP that we consider, I haven't actually got a term for this, but like end of page
Mhm.
or like end of scroll elements,
Mhm.
right? So a big one is normally reviews and also like recommended products. So quite often when people scroll down and they see that, that's where they stop scrolling because they're not expecting any more information below. Right. So if you have your product details, so your image gallery, your hero section, your product details below that, and then you put a line of recommended products or people also viewed, that's quite often a point where you'll see the scrolling stop. And so any content you've got below that not being seen, and that's quite possibly your reviews as well. So that's where, yeah, where scroll maps get really useful, because you can see what's blocking people from scrolling essentially. And then we have session recordings, which are literally recordings of people on your website and what they're doing. So an individual person, you are seeing their mouse move around the screen. If they're on a mobile, you see taps and you see scrolling. So again, you can see what they're interacting with, how they interact with them, whether they go back and forth between elements, and what you think is maybe causing a problem. And the key here is to segment the session recordings, so filter down to what you're actually looking for, and that comes back to that funnel messaging I was talking about earlier. Funnel point. If you realize that uh, product views is a problem and people aren't viewing your products, then you can set a filter and you can see what people do if they're not viewing products. You can do it on add to cart or start checkout. You could even say, I want to view the sessions for people who added to cart but did not start checkout
Mhm.
or did not complete checkout. You can go a bit further. And this will show you all the people who clicked the add to cart button and did not complete their purchase. So then you're looking out for, at what point in this journey did they drop off? And you see some really interesting things. Sometimes you see some buggy, but bugs that you need to go fix. Sometimes it's weird behavior, and you have to watch quite a few to check that it's not just one random person doing something. But what we noticed with one brand, a CBD brand, was that a lot of people were adding to cart from the product listing page, the collection page, and then they were adding multiple products, and then in the cart they were kind of just removing stuff, and then they go back to the PLP, add a few more, and the cart makes some edits, and then they would either move to checkout or not. And I was like, why? That's such weird behavior. I've never seen something like that. And what we kind of hypothesized was that because the only call to action on the product listing page was add to cart, so people didn't think they were able to actually click into a product,
Mm.
which, ask 1,000 people in the e-commerce space, and they'd all be shocked by that because they would all consider it standard behavior that you'd be able to click on the product name or the image. There's people out there who don't behave like that, don't know that so much. So that was what was happening. So we I can't remember which test actually worked on this one, succeeded, but we either changed the button to view details
Mm.
or we added an additional text link button for view details, and we still had the add to cart. But that was a great success for them as well, because it actually got people to view the details for the product, understand what was in it, how it worked, the benefits of it, because they weren't seeing any of that information before. So session recordings are great, for telling you actually what people are doing on these pages that might be causing a blocker.
Yeah,
And then we tend to add in some actual customer research, so actual feedback from people, to tell us what those real problems are.
I love that. And I love session recordings. That's probably my favorite. And I use all these across my stuff as well. So for anyone listening, if you don't have conversion optimization, if you don't have Microsoft Clarity or a similar platform, go at it because it's priceless that you can even start collecting data now and figure out, looking backwards, how to actually use it. But, for me with the session
Yeah,
recordings, sorry, one thought with the session recordings, the other thing that I love is, like you mentioned, seeing what people are actually doing on my website and where they're traversing. And you can kind of get into their head of, okay, why are they doing this? How are they doing this? But the other piece is it's another level of QA, like another level of
yeah,
testing for you that you've got real live user people that are on your site, you're seeing how they're using it. And to your point, where you might think it's something intuitive, it's not, right? To your whoever your target demographic is, you can see if they're getting confused, they're clicking on things that aren't supposed to be a thing, right? They're clicking on images that aren't links, and or you get a 404 error, or whatever. It's that other level of real your real people going through your website, and if you need to make tweaks.
yeah. And you made a really good point actually. Um, Microsoft Clarity is free, right? So install it, and if you don't have the time and resource to do it, just leave it to run, right? Gathering data, because then if you hire a CRO agency like us, um, we can come in and the data's there immediately, and we can just get stuck in. We don't have to wait a month for data. Um, the other thing I wanted to mention was some non some feedback that it will give you that you don't have to test on. Is it will give you rage clicks and dead clicks. So dead clicks are where people are clicking on things expecting something to happen and nothing is happening. So let's say you've got a bit of underlined text on your PDP. Let's say you've got I'm really bad at coming up with examples off the top of my head. You're buying a product. We'll go back to the CBD. You're buying a CBD product for the daytime, and in the product description, it says something like, "These pair really well with the CBD nighttime drops," and the CBD nighttime drops is underlined, right, which makes it look like a link, right? So people tap it to see what those drops are as well, and obviously they don't go anywhere. So that's what would be a dead click. Um, Also, you'll find out if some of your links are actually dead. If a button is not doing anything, you'll see dead links. And then there's rage clicks, which are kind of a similar thing, where people are clicking rapidly on the same thing, basically showing frustration. So if I click on the plus or the minus icon for quantity selector, or if I try to remove an item from my cart, if it doesn't work, I might, click several times to try and get it to do its thing. That will indicate a rage click. That's something you can just look at and go fix immediately. You don't have to run a test on it. There is something either not working or potentially misleading. So you can just go there and make that change. So that's something you can, again, leave it to run for 30 days, jump in, look at the data and see where there are problems. I
For
think it
sure.
also might have some kind of like 404 error stuff as well. I can't remember.
Yeah, no, massively helpful. And for people that are listening, are like, okay, I totally see the importance, but this is extremely overwhelming. How can they find you to make things easier
Yeah.
for them?
So you can go to customerswhoclick.com, where we've got loads of information about what we do, how we do it, how we help, and you can book a call. Or you can follow me on LinkedIn. So it's Will Laurenson. I've got a hand pointing at my name to make me stand out a bit more. Um, And my profile's all about CRO, so hopefully it'll be obvious. But I post on there daily, so there's loads of like CRO tips, advice, case studies, test examples. I post the podcast there as well to promote that. You can also check out the podcast, obviously. In fact, do not you can also do it. Check out the podcast. Do
For
it after this.
sure. Yes, and we'll have the links below for everybody to come check it out. So I'm curious, you've accomplished a ton in your career, personally, professionally. How do you define success? What does that look like for you?
Um, Success for me is, I guess, having more free time to do what I want to do, not necessarily outside the business, because there's still stuff I really like to do. I'm working on a couple of things, a couple of little projects at the moment, which I have promised people will be ready very quickly. One is basically an overview of the 200 episodes of our podcast. So that's taken an incredibly long time to analyze, pull out quotes and key insights and stuff. So I think, and to be honest, this is something that I just have as a business owner, I think as well. So it's almost like this success is kind of always here. If I'm having an off day, I can just have an off day
Mhm.
and just, shut my laptop, take the dog for a walk, go to the driving range, whatever. So that's something I really, really like. Otherwise, success is, learning new things, getting results. I really like helping people out. One of our brand values is, help others succeed or help people win. So I'm always looking for ways to help, even outside of our actual CRO service. In fact, a little kind of story around that. So we take quite a holistic view to what we do, approach to our clients. So our core service is CRO. That's the service that we provide clients. We also do these kind of mini audits. So we'll do an email audit, for example, and if we think there are some issues or some opportunities, we will offer to introduce the client to someone we know who can help with that. So we're not looking to pick up the extra services. We don't benefit from this. But we want to, if there's an opportunity for that brand to grow and we can point them in the right direction, we'll do that. And that came about because when I was in house, we didn't get that. We were working with agencies who just did not want to know us if we were not asking questions about their job, right? So if they were paid to do PPC, they would only speak to us about PPC. They didn't care about anything else. It was like, well, you can't grow a business like that, especially these days in D2C and e-commerce. You can't have silos. It doesn't work. All your agencies should be trying to work together, trying to collaborate, trying to point out other opportunities to grow. Um, so yeah, that's something I really like doing. I just enjoy having conversations, pointing people in the right direction.
Yeah, I know I love that. I function the same way, and I'm big on relationship-based everything, right? That the more we can collaborate with other people in all sorts of industries, the more we can help, send people back and forth and just really, at the end of the day, helping other people succeed. So I agree with you. I
Yeah.
think it's so powerful. And if you had the attention of the whole world for 5 minutes, what would you tell them?
Oh, um, test and learn. Just everything should be test and learn. Um, I was thinking about that on the train home just earlier, so I was at a networking event. Um, I Everything I do is I take a very test and learn an MVP approach to things, right? So I will ask for feedback a lot. And because of an incident in a job, I do sometimes feel a bit insecure about that. And I'm like, well, does this show that I don't know what I'm talking about if I'm asking for feedback 15 minutes into starting a task or a project? Um, but that's it's exactly what we do as a CRO agency, right? We start small, we figure out an MVP test for our clients, we test that, and if it works, then we iterate on it and we look to build out the more complex versions. And everything I do. So I'm working on an ebook, and I'm going to pass this on to a couple of people to give me feedback on, to say, well, is the design, what do you think of the design and the layout of it, and the content that I'm putting in? Because I don't want to summarize 200 episodes of a podcast, ask for some feedback, and then people tell me that actually, you know, no one likes having a quote in there or
Yeah.
something, and the design of the individual pages isn't right. I should have done it like this, because then I've got to go back and do the entire thing. So I would say with everything, don't be afraid to ask for feedback on stuff, and just I would just take a test and learn approach to everything. You don't have to go all in on anything really. Um, I mean, give it all your attention and stuff. I mean,
Right.
if you're going to do something, do it properly. But you know, you don't have to build out some massive complex thing in order to get going. I was actually speaking to someone the other day. He's been working on a business idea, a business project for a few months now. And he was saying his launch date's going to be in July. And I was like, I know what he's doing. I know what the business is. I was like, I think you can get this going in a month, right? You just need a basic website. You need to reach out to some people to get it set up, to get people involved in it, and just try it out. Like, you don't need to build out everything before you launch. So yeah, that'd be the big thing for me. Obviously make sure you know where you're going with this, but yeah, test and learn, gather feedback along the way, so you don't have to just rip it all up and start again.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing to add to that is it's not personal, right? Like I think so often when we're
Yeah,
asking for feedback, it's like, oh, this is my baby, like you put everything into it and you want people's feedback, but if you aren't willing to hear their feedback and you're not willing to test, like just because it may not be exactly what you were envisioning, it may actually be one step better when you incorporate that, right? And to your point, if you
yeah,
can incorporate it early, you're way better off than finding out 2 years into market, why is this thing not selling? And you've wasted all that time and energy when it could be something, just a tiny little shift to get where you want to go.
yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Will, for being on today. This was awesome, very informative. I love to geek out on this stuff, so I greatly appreciate your expertise.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you for having me. Yeah, really enjoyed it. Yeah, likewise. I could talk about CRO and testing and behavioral psychology and stuff for ages. So yeah, thank you.
Of course, of course. And if you found value in this episode, please do share it. That's how people find us. And you can find me at sevenfigurebuilder.com, and I'll see you on the next episode.